88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Weekends, and I am joined tonight by a person that isn't me in the station with me. If you'd like to introduce himself.
Hi, I am Logan Booth. I am someone who is not Nathan.
Wow, it's almost like you're a person, and I'm not just talking to myself. So that's great.
Yeah.
Is it me or is it hot in here? I feel
It is a little hot in here.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, spring has sprung, so at any rate. Welcome, Logan. Welcome,
Thank
welcome
you.
to the show. Glad to have you on again. You were
Yes.
on here a couple of weeks ago. It was really fun, and I have a feeling that we're going to have some fun tonight as well.
I think so too.
Because we're talking about somebody that means a lot to both of us. I'd
Yes.
say.
My
More so,
favorite British person.
you have like a list of them.
Yeah. I've got it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I'd say this person would probably fall on that list for me as well. Tonight we are talking about the wonderful director Edgar Wright
Yes, we
and
are.
his Cornetto trilogy, or
And
I would call
another one.
Well, oh yes, and one other one, because this is What to Watch Weekends. We don't just talk about only three. We usually talk about four at least. Four. Count them four. But yes, we are talking about the Cornetto trilogy, which is an interesting pick because it's often called one of the best trilogies of movies out there. It is also probably one of the loosest connecting trilogies on that list of
Yeah.
best trilogies out there.
Calling it a trilogy is like, it doesn't really make much sense.
No, I mean, it makes sense from the perspective of all three of them were directed. I don't know. For some reason, I sometimes mispronounce directed, like
okay.
it has an E where an I should
Some
be.
people say directed. So
Directed. Yeah, fair enough. I directed a movie. Anyways, they were all directed by Edgar Wright. They were all co-written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, and they all starred Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And they all had like a Cornetto ice cream in it.
Yeah.
Which the way I can
that's the connection.
that's the connection. That's really the connection. I mean, you could make thematic arguments about the connection, which we can get to later, but I mean, that's the bare bones connection at the very least. And I'd say it's interesting to think about the Cornetto being the connection part, because in the States we don't have Cornettos. We have drumsticks.
That's true.
So maybe it doesn't mean
The
the
drumstick
exact
trilogy.
the drumstick trilogy. Yeah. In the American version, when they remake them, because America doesn't know how to make any foreign films in America, so they just rip them off like Old Boy or something like that. We're just going to call it the drumstick trilogy, and it's going to be a lot worse because it doesn't have Edgar Wright. But
Or Cornetto.
or Cornetto. Yes.
It's integral. It truly is.
It is integral, even though it didn't show up being eaten in The World's End. But that's a different topic. We'll get to that after we talk about the first two in the quote-unquote trilogy, because we have to start somewhere. Might as well start with where it mostly started for Edgar Wright, kind of his big breakout movie, the movie that would end up being in all of the posters for especially these other two ones as the director of this movie.
It's pretty popular for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. And that is Shaun of the Dead from 2004, which is available to rent on places such as Amazon, YouTube, and Apple. Anyways, the basic plot summary of Shaun of the Dead is very simple. We follow Shaun, a guy named Shaun, who is working at his job, and then he sees
What does he do?
he's like a TV salesman.
Okay.
Do you don't remember that detail of it?
No, I don't remember what he does. I just remember seeing. I just know what the job is.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Wait, I just got confused. What?
I'm also confused. Sorry. I did not know what the job was. It was always just like a generic job.
Yeah.
Whenever I would watch it.
Now I see. Yeah. It was just generic job. TV salesman who, after his girlfriend breaks up with him, decides to get better and grow up a little. And unfortunately, he doesn't really get a chance to do that because the next day, boom, zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, that makes it a little hard.
It makes it a little difficult, especially when they're separated by land, and a lot of the land is covered in zombies. So
Yep.
you have to go through zombies to get to where your girlfriend is, or ex at this point. And Sean decides, I don't really care. I'm going to do that anyways and going to travel across that land to
'Cause he
get to
loves
her.
her.
Because he loves her, yeah. He's just not mature enough to admit it at first. And it's kind of obvious that he may love his roommate Ed a little more in the beginning, at least.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The wonderful Ed played by Nick Frost and Simon Pegg playing Sean.
Yes.
So let's see here. Do you want to give like a starting thought here? Because I could start anywhere with Shaun of the Dead, but since you're the guest, might as well. How about you kick us off?
Sure. I mean, well, off the bat, we can start with the beginning and its use of needle drops immediately.
Fair enough. Yeah. Which song does it start off with?
I forget what it's called.
Oh, is it are you talking about the one where it shows the title card and it's that like weird electro sounding thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's called The Blue Wrath by the band I Monster.
That's the song. Yep.
That song, I don't think we have that in the radio, but I would recommend looking it up because then you will know the nightmare that has been my life for the last week because it's not out of my head.
It's good. It's a good song.
It's a good song, but I can't get it out.
Yeah.
It has legitimately been stuck.
It is a brain worm in your head.
Yeah, it's really good at that. I've had it stuck in my head for the last week, legitimately. And listening to it again didn't really get rid of it. I can still hear it. And I can't even begin. This is what's so annoying about it. It's such a good song, but it is impossible to mimic the way it sounds.
Yes.
Even half badly.
Very, very difficult.
So I can't even like voice this off to people. All I can really say is recommend looking it up and listening to it on your own time.
Or watch the movie.
Or recommend watching the movie. That works too, because you'll hear it within the first 5 minutes. And if you're like, oh, that's all I needed to hear, cool. Probably don't do that. I'd recommend watching
the full thing.
Watch the full thing if you started.
Because we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think in a similar vein, one thing I've wanted to talk about with this movie is it's known for that song, and then it's also known for having "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen in it.
Yes, it does.
So I will admit, Shaun of the Dead is the best use of "Don't Stop Me Now" in a movie that I've seen, at least, because it starts playing on the jukebox.
I don't really have anything else to compare it to. Maybe the only movie I can think of that might rival it would be Hardcore Henry.
So here's what I was about to say. Here's literally what I was about to say. I hoped you were going this direction. Yep. I think Shaun of the Dead is better.
I think Shaun of the Dead is better because it's diegetic and it's in the universe.
It's diegetic being, for those of you who don't know what that technical term means, it just means...
You're using slang.
What?
Sorry.
What?
I'm just using slang.
Yeah, we're using film slang. Diegetic literally just means, is it playing on a radio that is in the movie?
Yeah.
Do the characters also hear it? And with Don't Stop Me Now in Shaun of the Dead, it absolutely does happen that way.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason why I think it's better than the way they use it in Hardcore Henry, because it just starts playing and it's not like the characters can really hear it. But in comparison, I'd say Hardcore Henry is my favorite use of it.
Pretty sweet.
I like it.
Pretty cool.
It's really cool. I like it more in that scene and in that movie specifically, but Shaun of the Dead is better.
It is funnier in Shaun of the Dead.
It is a lot funnier. And it
when...
syncs up nicely with them beating up a zombie. So it's like, it's such a difficult comparison to make, but at the same time, it's like, it probably goes to Shaun more so than Hardcore Henry.
That's fair. No, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree.
Anyways, one thing we were talking about is slang. We were just talking about slang.
Yes.
And I think Shaun of the Dead is the one that made me realize, more so than even the other three that we're talking about tonight, that Edgar Wright is British.
He is. They all are. All of them.
Yeah, they're all British. That means that sometimes in these movies, I don't know what they're saying.
They're very British movies.
They can definitely be quite British at times, and it's like, I don't even. Does that sound about right? I hope I didn't just say something like really, really offensive.
I don't think so.
I think that's a good like mimic of it without really saying anything. It kind of mimics the way it sounds to an American who is not familiar with British slang. I'd say that Shaun of the Dead has it more than the others because when it comes to Hot Fuzz, they did a really funny joke with it, but I'll save that for later.
Yes.
I think Shaun of the Dead runs the risk of suffering for it. It doesn't actually suffer for it, but it runs the risk of suffering for it more than the others.
Yeah, I would agree. But I do think it adds to it. I think
Yeah.
the slang adds to the
Oh,
situation.
sure, no, totally. It can add to it in certain scenarios. It's just difficult to think of those because it's like now my brain is mush from the week and it's like blending
I
together.
getcha.
I don't remember the specific scenes, but I did watch it recently, so I can talk about more overall things. And I can talk about this overall detail that will exist with the rest of the Cornetto trilogy. I think Shaun of the Dead proved to me. Okay, so I think I should back up and say I've watched this movie twice before doing the review and watching it this week. And one thing that was made clear to me beforehand is that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are good friends in real life, as good of friends as they are in the movies that they play each other's best friends.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what part of it would make that obvious in the movie, right? Because if they're such good friends in real life, then maybe there's a joke in there that was improvised, something in there that was like a hint to me, oh, I think they're definitely best friends.
Yeah.
And I figured it out when watching Shaun of the Dead.
What do you think? What is it?
It's when it's the first time they're in the apartment and Sean says, or he's about to go to work, or no. I don't remember the exact exchange that takes place. What I do know is that Nick Frost, or Ed, apologizes. He goes, "I'm sorry, Sean." And Sean goes, "It's all right." "No, I'm sorry, Sean." And then Sean goes, "Ah!" Essentially, Ed farts in the room.
He rips his stinker.
He rips a silent but deadly fart and apologizes for it. And then Sean inhales it and he is mortified but laughs out loud. I feel like that actually happened on set. I feel like that was improvised.
You feel like that was improvised?
I'm not positive on it, and I haven't looked into it at all. But just from the way the exchange played out, and from the way that Sean's character changed from probably just a Simon Pegg laughing at it, I'd be willing to at least bet some part of my being on the fact that it could have been improvised.
I think it's possible it wasn't necessarily improvised, but it is based off of a real moment.
That's a good point, too.
Especially because it is brought back at the end in a very thematic moment.
Yeah, totally. I think if it wasn't improvised, then it absolutely was from something that did happen between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, which is why it felt more natural and could have been improvised even then. But if it wasn't, certainly felt natural for the two of them.
Yes, for sure.
Whoa, excuse me. I think, let me see here. I don't want to break down all the individual jokes in any of these movies.
There's so many.
There's so many.
They're like Hot Fuzz especially.
Oh yes, we'll get to Hot Fuzz.
The jokes per minute.
It's insane.
Shaun of the Dead too, though.
Shaun of the Dead for sure. One of the things about Shaun of the Dead is that I think in order to not break it down one by one and ruin the jokes by explaining them, I'll talk about the attitude of those jokes and why I find them really, really funny and why it benefits Shaun of the Dead from a story perspective. Yeah. A lot of the jokes are essentially, they're dry, they're detached and ignorant, very intentionally. Now, the dryness comes from it being a British comedy.
Yeah.
That's the way British comedy tends to function. Detached is, I think, indicative of the character of Sean and how he feels detached from the world around him at the beginning and why his girlfriend ends up breaking up with him. And so a lot of the jokes feel detached from that perspective. But ignorant is a really funny thing to be during a zombie invasion. You kind of notice it immediately.
The fact that it took him a while to figure it out.
It takes him about, so that movie's an hour and 39 minutes, and there are indications that there's going to be something zombie related from the very beginning.
Yes.
Even though it hasn't happened yet, within about 20 minutes, I'd say there is indications of there being zombies already happening. And it takes him until about 39 minutes in for him to suddenly realize it. And then the moment it happens, it's really, really funny. But that like ignorance is bliss kind of a thing, I feel like they carried it about as far as they could have without it turning into something unwatchable.
Like after it just taking way too long.
Yeah, it's like it's taken too long. No, they struck that balance perfectly of this is now so funny to watch happen up until the moment where they finally realize it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes to two scenes in particular that I really wanted to talk about on Wednesday, but got really caught up with some other details here and there. Even though I've said I won't narrow in on specific details, I can narrow down on two scenes in this movie. You can probably guess what they are. Mm-hmm. They are the two versions of Sean going to the store. And the first one, it's all normal, hunky-dory, regular day. Second version is after the apocalypse is broken out. There's a bunch of zombies wandering around. Everything's destroyed. Mm-hmm. And when watching those scenes again, I have a newfound appreciation for them because I'm sitting there going, if you took these two scenes, spliced them together, cut out a lot of the stuff in between them, and just left in a girlfriend breaking up with him, I think you'd have a really good short film.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Scream situation where you have the first 10 minutes as like a perfect short film.
Yeah.
I think these two scenes together would be a really good short film.
I could definitely see that, yeah.
And I think that it goes a long way to show that, how do I say it? They show enough, you get everything out of that package that you get from the rest of the movie. The movie just does a really good job at giving you what you didn't know you wanted in terms of giving you more of that same substance.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way I
agree totally, yeah.
That's the way I'd look at it. I think, let me see here. I've already, from the way I've talked about this movie, it sounds like I love it, and that's because I do.
It's good.
It's a great movie in my opinion, but I also want to admit one funny thing about Shaun of the Dead is that when I first watched it, I didn't get all of the hype around it. Mm-hmm. I liked it, but I didn't love it, right? And then when I watched it a second time at like a club meeting where we had like a screening for it, I watched it again and I'm like, I don't know if I fully get it yet. Watching it for a third time, I can fully admit that part of the reason this movie works for me now is because I knew where it was going.
Yeah.
I think that goes for a lot of Edgar Wright stuff, but it tends to help when you know where he's going with stuff.
That's fair. That's fair. I think there is one movie that we're going to talk about that I think works a lot better if you don't know what's happening.
Fair enough. Let me see if I can guess which one. Is it Hot Fuzz?
It's not Hot Fuzz.
Oh, is it The World's End?
It is The World's End.
Okay, so we'll save it for when we get to World's End. Fair enough. Let me see here. I feel like I'm very tired today. Are you tired today?
I'm very tired, but you know what? We're pushing through. Because we got a show to do.
Yeah. We got a show. So before we go to break, I have two final things. This will be the first time I've said two final things and actually had two final things to talk about. Whoa.
What?
Going back to the ignorance thing, I find it so funny that they actively avoid calling them zombies.
It's so good.
It's not even like they don't say the word zombies. It's more like
don't say that. That's lame.
Don't say that. It's lame. That's just a good joke to have.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Even though they are just straight up zombies, but avoid calling them zombies. It's like now I can say it's not my favorite zombie movie because they don't call them zombies.
What's your favorite of the Dead movie?
There's like multiple of them too, so it's like yeah. I mean that would count though. I think Night of the Living Dead is the best one, but
it wasn't of the Living Dead movie.
Yeah. Wait. No, that's true. Of the Dead. Wait. Yeah. No. So wait. No. So Dawn of the Dead is just Dawn of the Dead, not of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And Day of the Dead. So
there's Day of the Dead. There's Dawn of the Dead. There's also Dawn of the Dead.
Wait.
There's two Dawn of the Deads.
Oh, right. The Zack Snyder version.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also Return. No, that's Return of the Living Dead. No, yeah, I would.
Is it Army of the Dead?
What?
Army of the Dead?
Army of the Dead. That one counts too. So yeah, Shaun of the Dead would probably be my favorite out of that list. It certainly isn't Day of the Dead. My opinion is out there about Day of the Dead. It's not very good.
I think it's fun.
we'll get into a whole conversation about Biff at some point. But I also, before we go to break, one thing I feel like I should mention when talking about these movies, we have Edgar Wright directing, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost starring, and Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright co-writing the movies. Yes. Not that I don't like these people. I think that the women of these movies deserve shout-outs. So we're going to do that for each of them.
All right.
And that includes Shaun of the Dead. Kate Ashfield as Sean's girlfriend, Liz. She does awesome.
She's great.
I wish she was in more things that I've seen. Jessica Hines as Yvonne. Oh, so Jessica Hines makes a cameo. She worked with Simon Pegg on their TV show Spaced that was also involving Edgar Wright. I find it really funny. I haven't even watched Spaced.
It's really good. I've watched it. Yeah.
I've basically figured if I watched Spaced, her cameo would mean a lot more to me.
It is better, like having seen it. It's very short. You could probably watch it really quick.
Yeah. I was going to, but then I just didn't have enough time in the week.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I figured, is her cameo a lot more significant with...
It's not necessarily significant. It's just like I get it.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I understand what they're referencing here.
Yeah, you understand why it's...
But like it also works perfectly fine if you haven't.
Right. And especially later on when they play the joke of having copies of Sean's team, and then there's Martin Freeman playing I think it was David or something.
I think so.
Yeah, the David clone. Anyways, Jessica Hines. Then we have Lucy Davis, Diane. Underrated character. Underrated actress, in my opinion. She's great. She's like this silly little Billy, and honestly, I think if I kind of would have
silly little Billy.
I kind of would have preferred they got rid of David, kept her, and then maybe not had Liz, and it could have been like this weird moment where she like tries to get with Sean and likes Sean, but he's so oblivious to all of it.
That would be pretty funny.
That would be
David
really
makes me so mad.
What?
David, I do
David.
not like that guy.
David, he sucks. Of course, because he's meant to. I mean, Dylan Moran does a really good job.
He does an amazing job.
He does a great job.
Turd.
And then we have Penelope Wilton playing Barbara.
I love
Barbara, she's great. Although I will say her character's made funnier by the fact that Ed unironically just wants to be with Barbara.
Yep.
It's like, bro.
He is in love with Barbara.
There's all those jokes on the internet of, I'm in love with your mom. And it's like, no, he just straight up is in love with.
He just was, yeah.
He just is in love with Sean's mom. That's a goofy joke. Anyways, now that we've gotten those shout outs out of the way, I believe it is time that we go to break. So we will be back very soon. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What's a Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, and I'm joined by my guest tonight,
Logan Booth. That is the guest. It's me.
It's you. Welcome. Welcome back. Welcome back indeed.
Never left.
What?
Never left.
Never left. Back like you never left. Although you're not back because you didn't leave. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's how that works. So, after we talked about Shaun of the Dead, we are now going to get into the second movie in the Cornetto trilogy, because it was the second one that came out in the Cornetto trilogy. I think it was even the second, well, not the second, but it was the third movie that Edgar Wright ever made.
Yeah.
Which is Hot Fuzz from 2007, available to watch on Amazon and YouTube and Apple and Fandango at home through renting. Anyways, the basic plot summary of Hot Fuzz is it follows Nicholas Angel, who is promoted to sergeant in the bustling heart of London as a police officer, and then being told, haha, we're going to transfer you to Sanford, an old folk town in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you're still the sergeant now.
Still sergeant.
You're a sergeant now. Congratulations. What?
Sergeant Angel.
Sergeant Angel. But now you're in the middle of nowhere. Deal with it. And he does deal with it because this quaint, perfect little town may have a dark underbelly to it.
A little bit of a secret.
Maybe a bit of a secret. So before we get into anything, I have to say right now, What to Watch Weekends is the show where I talk about spoilers. Oh no, I know.
For people who are listening, I looked at the camera and I went,
He held his hands up and mocked a face of surprise.
I did.
Yeah, it's very funny.
I try.
I'm just thinking of that one meme image of the guy going, But anyways, so I spoil movies on What to Watch Weekends And I'm usually fine with it. I am still fine with spoiling Hot Fuzz here tonight, but if I'm being honest, I'm kind of reluctant to do it. I'm still going to. I'm not going to cheap out.
Still going to.
I'm
Because
still
if you
going-
haven't seen it, it's been out for a while. and
Yes.
It's really good.
It's very good. Highly recommend going to see it or going out of your way to watch it. I know I did at some point, and it's so good. I adore Hot Fuzz with every part of my being, and I would consider it my 11th favorite movie.
It was the first Edgar Wright movie I ever watched.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That must have been an experience.
I was very young. I was way too young.
Oh, no.
I was way too young to watch it.
I can imagine. Oh,
yeah.
no. Yeah, I mean, with Hot Fuzz, I'd say even more so than Shaun of the Dead in certain points. It's a little more gruesome.
I would agree.
So that's not good. But I guess now I want to ask you, to lead into that, you've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before. I went on a rant about how much I love this movie on Wednesday because I think it's my favorite Edgar Wright movie that I've seen. I think it's the best one, but you said during the break that it's not your favorite.
No, it's my second favorite.
second favorite out of the Cornetto trilogy, at least.
It's also my second favorite Edgar Wright movie.
Okay, fair enough. So, well, I mean, usually when it comes to Cornetto trilogy, not that Scott Pilgrim is bad. If somebody said Scott Pilgrim was their favorite Edgar Wright movie, I'd be like, that makes sense.
I would believe it.
That's fine. But usually people have a favorite Edgar Wright movie that's within the Cornetto trilogy.
Usually, but he's got other ones, and they're all good.
He's got, yeah, no, most of them are really good. But you said it's your second favorite.
Yes.
What? And you said something, there's a specific element of it that drags it down for you.
Yes, I did say that. So, getting into spoiler territory, at the end of the film, there is the shootout sequence, and I really enjoy it. It's very fun, but my only issue is that a lot of the shooting and action sequence of that bit, there's a lot of cuts, and it gives me a headache.
Yeah,
That's mostly it. I just think it's a little too much. And that's my problem with it.
I can understand that, and I can agree with that. I thought it was quite a lot myself, and I'm someone who loves the hyper-pat.
I think it's intentional,
It is very intentional.
but it's a lot. It is a bit much for me.
Right.
And I think it brings it down a little bit.
I can understand that, especially with the ending. I personally, it verged on being too much for me.
It gets to be a lot, yeah.
What I think kind of settles it, what made me like it more, and what made me be comfortable with it, is I feel like a lot of movies and a lot of directors out there do those kinds of sequences with that level of fast-paced, intense cuts, and most of them don't know how to do it right.
No, that's fair. A lot of them aren't doing it on purpose.
Yeah, you've got things like Taken. Any fight scene in Taken is going to be like that, and it's
Taken 3 at least. The first few aren't too much like that.
Taken 3 is probably the example I'm thinking of.
Sequence.
What?
He tries to climb a fence, and there's like 12 cuts.
Yeah, or he's like just fighting some guy in a hallway, and
Yeah.
there's like 6, and it's like this is nauseating to watch. I can understand getting a headache when watching the end of Hot Fuzz, but I don't think it's super nauseating, and I don't think it is trying to cover up anything.
No, I wouldn't call it nauseating or trying to cover up anything. It's just very fast, and it's just a lot of. It's just a lot.
It is a lot to handle, and I can fully respect that being your reason for bringing it down.
That's my main.
If
my main reason.
If that's your main reason, then that's a good enough reason for me. I can fully respect
just
that.
an editing qualm. Also, as an editor
myself,
it just is. It's a small editing qualm. Yeah.
Yeah, especially as someone who also does editing. That's part of the reason why I'm being so gracious about it.
The rest of the movie is amazingly edited.
Oh, so good. I see. It's funny because there's going to be an opposite thing with The World's End, because I know that's your favorite.
It is.
I have an interesting.
I can agree that Hot Fuzz is probably the best script and the most technically good.
Right.
But it's still not my favorite.
Right.
Though
no.
I do also think that World's End is one of his best directed.
Right. So, and that makes sense. And we can kind of break that down a
Yeah.
little more when we actually get to the world's end,
course.
because there's so much to say about Hot Fuzz.
There's a lot to say about Hot Fuzz. It's so funny.
It's so
It's a very funny movie.
I went on and on about it because I know I said I didn't want to break down the jokes with Shaun of the Dead. That's Shaun of the Dead. Okay? You break down the jokes with Shaun of the Dead and you're going to kind of break them apart. You break down the jokes in Hot Fuzz, you don't need to break them down. What you just need to say is there's a part where a hotel clerk called Simon Pegg a fascist.
Yep.
And during that final gunfight, she calls him a fascist again. And his response is the same thing he says to her, which I don't know if I can say that word on the radio. Probably not. Probably not. But at first, it's a joke about her filling out a newspaper crossword puzzle, and it says fascist, and she says it randomly. Then she straight up just calls him a fascist. That's the evolution of the joke. And it's so funny because it's the perfect example of setup and payoff. And one thing I said on Wednesday that you'll probably agree with me on, Hot Fuzz is probably the best at setup and payoff.
It is beautiful. I think my favorite setup and payoff in the movie is the swan.
The swan, yes.
is through the whole movie. They're looking for that swan.
Yeah. I completely forgot about the swan until I saw it referenced somewhere. And then when I looked it up, I'm like, it's a swan. They were chasing a swan. And when I'm sitting there and then I go, dang it, Edgar Wright, you wrote that as a wild goose chase, didn't you? But you changed it to a swan to be funnier. Mm-hmm. How dare you? That's hilarious. Yes, the swan is probably the best one. I think.
Luck catching them swans then.
What?
Just the one swan.
Just the one swan. Let me see here. I think that's just an example of a joke.
Yeah.
There are so many parts of this movie that, okay, let me back this up and let me kind of rein in my thoughts, because I have a big thing I want to say about Hot Fuzz that went into spoilers that I couldn't say on Wednesday at all. Okay. So Hot Fuzz is my favorite Edgar Wright movie because it is a cop comedy movie, which for those of you who know me, I'm big on comedy crime movies as much as I am on action movies. I love comedy crime. You know this because I wrote a screenplay that you were in my writing team for, and it was a crime comedy cop movie. I like cop dramas. One of my favorite TV shows is half a cop drama.
What's the other half?
It's a hardcore sci-fi movie about AI.
Sweet.
So it's half cop drama, half hardcore AI sci-fi drama. Anyways, I have a bias towards cop comedy movies already. Mm-hmm. But I think aside from that, Hot Fuzz is a perfect amalgamation of two really great movies, Scream and The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't bring up The Wicker Man on Wednesday because that would spoil everything. That would spoil everything. So it brings in the best elements of Scream with the mystery of there being a hooded figure running around murdering the village people and being really fast and really hard to catch and able to fight back. Very Scream-esque, very much like Ghostface. Mm-hmm. And it also ties nicely into the Wicker Man idea because at the hour 20 minute of Hot Fuzz, it is revealed to Nicholas Angel after he goes to this castle that pretty much all of the major figures of the town are involved in this grand conspiracy to win this award for best town in England.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. It's a full-blown cult.
It's just a cult.
And all of them wear these little hooded outfits. And most of them were involved in the killings and were the killer in the hood. Mm-hmm. And it's
for the greater good.
For the greater good. Doing it for the greater good. And that did you say it again?
They always repeat it.
They do. It's hilarious. It ties in nicely with the Scream element as well, because the whole twist of Scream is usually that there's multiple people. At least that's what I've heard. I know that's what it was in the first movie.
Yes.
And I'm guessing Ghostface is always multiple people.
Sometimes.
Fair enough. I haven't seen the rest of the Scream movies. I've only seen the first one.
I've seen all of them, and they're all very good. There's no bad Scream movie, in my opinion.
In your opinion. Fair enough. That makes it, that that certainly is an interesting take. I don't think I've ever heard that before. But is it always like a group of people of at least two who don on the mask?
There is at least one where it's only one.
Okay.
I will not say whether or not it is more than one movie.
Okay. So, but in majority sense,
yes,
most of them are multiple people.
Most of them are multiple people.
Okay.
Usually two.
Usually two. So it's just the accentuated version of Scream with Hot Fuzz, because this is like a group of about 9 to 12 people.
Yeah. It's like every important figure.
Yeah. And I feel like I haven't elaborated at all on why this relates to The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man was like a popular horror movie, like a folk horror movie with, what's his name? The guy who played Dooku. What's his face?
I cannot tell you his name.
Dang it. He also played Saruman. No, it was Saruman. Let me look this up. The Wicker Man. I don't want the one with Nicolas Cage. Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee was in The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man is essentially a mystery horror movie where this cop goes to a remote island and finds out that it's just a full-blown cult and run by a lot of the prominent figures of the town, and they're going to sacrifice him to their big wooden statue.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't happen in Hot Fuzz.
No, there's no statue. I wouldn't have been surprised.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised. And you know what I wasn't surprised by? I was reading the trivia on Hot Fuzz, and Edgar Wright said directly, I was inspired by The Wicker Man when writing this. And I was like, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
I can totally tell.
It's pretty clear.
It's in a really good way. Don't get me wrong. In a great way.
They're all inspired by something.
Oh, sure. I mean, like Shaun of the Dead obviously being inspired by the Dead series, and The World's End. What is The World's End inspired by?
Bar crawl movies?
Okay, fair enough. So it's like The Hangover, but British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
There we go.
British movie. There's a lot of bar crawl British movies. That's kind of a popular genre.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, I think it takes the best elements of The Wicker Man, again, that conspiracy of the town, and merges them with Scream in a way that I didn't notice until a rewatch. I think this is it's the perfect exemplification of a saying that I tend to bring up a lot, especially when talking about Scream.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love Scream, one of the reasons I love Blazing Saddles, and one of the reasons I now love Hot Fuzz to death is the essence of a good parody movie is being really good at parodying the thing that you are making fun of, and then being a good movie on your own rights. Yes. And Scream was really great at that. Blazing Saddles is really good at that. Hot Fuzz is really good at that. And those are just the three big examples I can think of. But it goes a long way in showing that just because you're making fun of something and, like, I guess parodying it in a way doesn't mean you're going to be better than it. Yeah. You usually have to do a lot of legwork to elevate yourself above the thing you're making fun of.
You really, really do. And he does.
He does so much so. I think... Whoa, excuse me. I keep thinking, and I'm not getting anywhere. Oh, great. You know, there are some jokes that don't get paid off again. And I'm kind of sad they didn't.
What jokes?
Specifically where Nick Frost, what's his character's name? And Danny. Danny, played by Nick Frost, who's the son of the police chief in this town. He has like his policeman's notebook, and he has a little flip book in it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I was like, he's like, do you want to see how it goes the other way? And I'm like, yes, I do. Why am I not seeing that? I wanted to see that again. Yeah. I also think there's this joke where they have an evidence room, and the combination code for it is 999. Yeah. Which is just the 911 in Britain. Simon Pegg, Nicholas Angel, enters it into the code later in the movie, but I wish that had gone somewhere. They just kind of do it as a subtle joke, and I'm like,
I think it works best as a subtle joke.
It works good, don't get me wrong.
I think if they put attention to it, it wouldn't have been as funny.
Okay, so I will concede.
Unless it like changed to 911 or something.
Right.
That would have been funny.
Right. Or it's like, you got to press it for longer than that. Or no, press the other 9. What else? I think the flip book thing should have been brought back later, but
That would have been funny, yeah.
I think it's fine as it is. I think one thing I wanted to bring up with Hot Fuzz before we go to break, I suppose. One thing I noticed with Hot Fuzz that I carry on to the rest of Edgar Wright's work that will definitely apply to our next one is that, have you ever noticed one motif about Edgar Wright that nearly all of the movies are a big group of them against us situation, or a individual up against the masses?
Yeah.
Like a conspiracy of a group against one person.
Yeah.
That goes for Shaun of the Dead because it's a zombie invasion. Pretty easy to do.
They're all against him.
They're all against him. It's pretty, but it's Hot Fuzz because the entire town is against Angel and against other people. In World's End, it will also apply when we get to that. In Baby Driver, they all turn against him eventually. Mm-hmm. In Scott Pilgrim versus the World, it's called Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Versus the World. Him against the X's as well. Yeah,
him against the X's. It's definitely a recurring theme, right? And I haven't seen Last Night in Soho.
Very good.
But does that have that theme as well?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say there's an element of that.
All right. I mean, is it like a prominent element, or is it noticeable enough?
I would say it's noticeable enough. I won't say what it is because you should watch it.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. But as long as that's in there, I can definitely say that is a very recurring motif that I really appreciate about all of his movies, that I think accentuates every situation it's in, because that always just gives the threat more foothold and more grounding to have, and leads to a lot of funny moments. Yeah. Especially in the next movie we talk about after we get back from break, which will be The World's End.
Yes, my favorite.
Your favorite. And we will talk about why when we come back. So be back soon. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What's Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, and I'm joined by another person here today who I found, I think.
Yeah. I was just here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened. I woke up. I was just in the office. Nathan came in. He was like, "Oh, I was doing this alone." And I was like, "Oh, can I join?" Because I don't know where I am.
Yeah, welcome. What's your name? You don't have one. Oh, no.
No, my name's Logan Booth.
Yeah, and you work here at the station.
I do work here.
That's how I know you. So I didn't just pull you randomly off the street. Although, can you imagine how funny that would be? Anyways.
It would be kind of funny.
So, part of the reason I brought you in off the street now, part of the reason I brought you in to be on the show tonight is the next movie we're going to be talking about here on What to Watch Weekends, which is the movie The World's End from 2013, available to rent from places such as Prime, YouTube, Fandango at Home, Apple TV. You could just rent it from places. Although on Google, for some reason, every time I search it up, it says World's End the. And it's like
That's not the movie title.
No, it's in reverse. I don't know why.
I don't know either.
That's ridiculous to me. Before we get, well, I'll say the basic plot summary. The basic plot summary is we follow a character named Gary King, played by the ever likable Simon Pegg, as he is trying to relive the glory days of being a high schooler and going on a pub crawl in his hometown with his 4 best friends from back in high school when they're all 40 years old. So very much past their prime, very much past the days of being young. But he wants to do it because they never finished their pub crawl. They never got to the very end.
They failed.
And he wants to complete it once and for all as a 40-year-old man because he never got over it. Yeah. Before we jump into this movie, I wanted to go back really quickly and follow up on a promise that I made earlier, which is that with Hot Fuzz, I wanted to give a shout out to the female actresses, the big ones, which would be Olivia Colman, who is Doris Thatcher in that movie. Her jokes are very specific and ones we can't repeat on the radio.
Crass.
Very crass. a bit, very crass, but in a way that I think feels, how do I say it?
It's very British.
It's very British. I was about to say it's crass in an appropriate way, but not really, no. Not really, no. I think, but it is funny.
Yeah, it's very funny.
They're very funny, and they all fit very nicely. We also have Lucy Punch, who is Eve Draper, which the reason, as a spoiler, she gets killed off in that movie. And the reason they kill her off is because she had an annoying laugh. That like all the people who get killed off in Hot Fuzz get killed off for a really stupid, petty
such
reason.
Petty reasons of like, well, she was going to move away.
She was going to move away.
So we had to kill her.
Yeah, like Joyce Cooper, the woman who runs the flower shop. She was there for all of like 3 minutes and then gets murdered with like pruning shears. Yep. But she did great for the brief amount of time she was on. But yeah, I think it makes sense to go back and mention those. And before we jump into anything else about The World's End, I wanted to, before I forget, mention the fact that a character who is the sister to Oliver Chamberlain, played by Martin Freeman, is Rosamund Pike, who plays Sam Chamberlain.
Yes.
Who, for my money, I like her character mostly because she doesn't end up with Simon Pegg's Gary King by the end of the movie.
No, she does not, because she has standards.
Yeah, it's great to see. You love to see it. Edgar Wright's actually a smart writer in certain instances, and he knows how to write a decent enough female character who doesn't go for the bad boy and has standards and goes for the nice guy, Stephen Prince, who treats her nicely and right and morally acceptably.
Yeah, Gary King is not the ideal of masculinity.
No, he's not really the ideal of anything.
He's very much a very toxic masculinity coded character.
I would say he's not even like a toxic masculinity. He's just a toxic.
Oh, he's toxic.
He's legit.
He's all of them.
He's just
toxic masculinity, toxic British. That's all of them.
Toxic blood because he drinks too much alcohol.
He's an alcoholic.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Let's see here. So, you said this is your favorite movie.
It is my favorite.
What element of this movie makes it your favorite?
All of it.
Okay.
Well, one, it's my opinion. It's his best directed. It's his best edited, in my also opinion. I think the editing is almost flawless. It's brilliant. I think all the music's good. I think it's funny. I think the mid twist of the movie is the best twist in any movie, and that if you watch this movie blind, it's the best way to watch it.
Right.
That's my opinion.
So I let me expand on some of the things you've said, because I can agree with some, disagree with some.
Okay.
So the best directed part, I think I can agree with that, just because it's clear all 5 of the main actors, which are Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Patty Considine, Martin Freeman, and Eddie Marsan, all 5 of them do a really good job. Mm-hmm. And I think directing-wise, it is pretty solid. It's difficult to see more high-scale stuff in some Edgar Wright movies. Yeah. He's really good at kind of pretending like a lot. Pretending a little is a lot. It's an interesting perspective to say, but you've just got a bunch of extras playing zombies in Shaun of the Dead. Yeah. That's like the biggest scale. A lot of the extras in this movie are definitely better directed than the zombies in Shaun of the Dead. So I can definitely agree with that.
The Shaun of the Dead zombies were paid like 1 penny.
Right. Because what are you going to do?
Because they were all fans.
Right. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
They were all fans, and they were doing like a meet and greet, and they were like, "Do you guys want to like be in our movie?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so they got paid one thing because they had to legally pay them. Right.
So that makes okay. So that lines up still with the point of a lot of the extras in Edgar Wright movies. It's low high budget. Is the way I'd describe it. It's
especially Cornetto. Obviously, he gets higher budgets later on.
Right. And I think that's why The World's End is better directed, because of the budget and the ability to direct a lot more people at once and kind of have a better sense of coordination.
Just experience as well.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
You can tell The World's End is post Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I can say that. I can see that. Oh, excuse me. I wanted to ask, what were the other things you said in the order you said them?
I think the editing is probably the sharpest, cleanest editing of all three of them, in my opinion.
Okay. I kind of agree with that.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I don't dislike the editing in The World's End. I think it's good. But I will say, in comparison to every Edgar Wright movie we're talking about tonight, I think the editing is a little repetitive when it comes to having a person walk across screen being the cut.
Okay, that you could say that about all of them though, because they all have that.
I could say that about all of them, but I think The World's End has it more than the others.
Okay, I don't necessarily agree, but I'll let you continue.
Okay, let me bring up an example, right? So let's think here. In Hot Fuzz, there's at least some variety. There is bright flashes of light. Mm-hmm. There is the whole overlay with semi-transparency. There's sometimes camera whips, camera pans, from my memory at the very least. I watched them back to back, and I will admit, having a person walk across the screen is a very stylistic thing for Edgar Wright. Mm-hmm. I think either I was in a bad mood or it legitimately felt like it was too much.
I really don't think it happens that much in The World's End.
Okay.
Like, there's only a small number of examples I can even think of in that movie where it's just a guy walking across the frame. I think that one also, I think, has some of the best match cuts that he's done.
Where can I think of? For some reason, when I think of the match cut, I think of the match cut in Hot Fuzz where he's getting out of bed. And I feel
that one's really good.
That one's really good.
There's one where it's when they get kicked out of that one bar, and he drinks all of the beers that are just outside on the table. And he puts it down.
Okay. I can admit that's a good one.
He places it down, they're empty, and then it cuts to when they're in the next bar and they're all full.
Okay, I can admit that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Again, I honestly, it's kind of a nitpick because I found it too repetitive for me at least.
That's fair.
The person walking across the screen. I think that's probably my opinion of it, honestly. If it wasn't too much for you that you didn't see it too many times.
I didn't notice it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not there.
Right.
It's just not something I noticed.
Right. Okay. So in that case, it's probably just a personal thing because I like the variety of Hot Fuzz a little bit more.
I can definitely say it. World's End probably is the most toned down in the stylistic editing.
Right.
But I think that's on purpose and very much intentional.
Yeah,
especially because we know he can still do it with the movie we're going to talk about after this.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And I think with World's End, it's because World's End is very much about like someone trying to reach their prime, and I think that kind of more toned down, more steadily editing. Not that it's not fast-paced editing, because the movie's still very much fast-paced.
Oh sure, yes.
But a little more toned down, I think, fits with the characters as they are as well.
Right. And I think all of this comes down to personal preference.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of this part comes down to personal preference because I can agree stylistically and with the tone of the movie, it works.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the hyperactivity of Hot Fuzz.
Totally fair.
So much more.
And I don't blame that.
Again, with that ending sequence, it just tickles my brain, my fast-paced ADHD brain, in such a perfect way. But at the same time, I can fully understand it being too much for you.
See, my fast-paced ADHD brain, I watch it, I'm like, oh, I can slow down for a second.
Yeah,
that's why it works for me.
Right. Yeah, and that makes. See, that lines up for me. Now all of a sudden,
different levels of ADHD.
Different levels. It's all so very different. But again, I think objectively speaking, there are some, well, I don't know. I think The World's End does succeed in a lot of ways. I definitely don't think it's nearly as bad as some of the critic reviews read.
So there are some people who do not like The World's End.
Yeah,
I don't think they're right.
6.9 out of 10.
They're allowed to say that.
Yeah.
But I think it's insane.
6.9 out of 10 on IMDb.
I think that's insane.
I have to learn to stop reading critic reviews on IMDb because
IMDb especially.
Yeah, because it's like They don't go lower than 4 unless it's an actually bad movie. And it's like, okay, what are you guys doing? 6.9 is such a disservice to it because I honestly think it falls as the third best in the series.
See, that is unfortunately that is like the common opinion as well. That's the probably I think the popular take is usually it's like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, World's End is like the most. That's usually the ranking I hear for the Cornetto trilogy, and I disagree.
That's fine.
But they're all movies.
That normal,
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that normal take is my own take on it,
and there's nothing wrong with that because it makes sense, and like I understand it.
Yeah, and how do I say it? I think The World's End is a good end to the Cornetto trilogy out of the 3. I think I definitely regretted watching it before watching Hot Fuzz because Hot Fuzz was like the safe option of knowing, oh, I'm going to love this for sure. Having not seen The World's End before deciding to do it this week and watching it this week, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And to be honest, the only part of it that I didn't really like and didn't gel with me was the ending of it. And by that, I mean the very end, not the like main ending of it. The post-apocalypse stuff, I was like, it's a little too much. But at the same time, sometimes Edgar Wright movies can have a little too much or too little at the very end.
I love the ending. We can talk about that. I think before we talk about that, we should talk about the middle of the movie.
Okay, yes, we absolutely should. So here's one thing.
Did you go in blind when you watched it? How blind were you?
I was told that there was an alien invasion, but when I brought it up, you kept telling me that it was just a bar crawl
because that's what I wanted you to think.
You wanted me to think that. And so I wasn't completely blind, but I was blind to exactly how it happened. And okay, here's what I need to gush about.
Such a funny reveal.
It is such a funny reveal. Here's what I need to gush about in regards to the reveal. Again, these are spoilers for World's End, but essentially what happens in this movie is Nick Frost plays a character named Andrew, who is Gary King's best friend from high school, like his best friend out of the 5. And so as they're both 40-year-olds, Simon Pegg has to convince Nick Frost to come on this bar crawl with him. And the way he does it is by paying back a debt that he owes by borrowing money from the other 2, but by saying also, hey, my mother died of cancer.
Yes.
Can you come back to the hometown for old time's sake? And when they get to the 3rd bar, it is revealed after Gary goes to the restroom that his mother is still alive and calling him. Now, in any other movie not directed by Edgar Wright, I would have expected that twist to happen at the 9th bar.
Yes.
I would have been like so annoyed that I'd have to wait for that to be revealed. And I was even annoyed at myself going, are they going to reveal it later that his mom is not dead? And I looked at the Wikipedia and it said, oh, he lies about his mom being dead. And I go, dang it, why did I spoil it for myself? Now, about 20 minutes later, Simon Pegg, Gary King, goes to the restroom, starts yapping at some teenager, beats the kid up, and rips his head off to reveal a little blue nub that resembles a Lego and a lot of blue blood. And it's revealed that there's some form of alien robot taking over the town.
Yep.
And what does Nick Frost do? He bursts down the door going, why did you lie to me about your mother being dead? And I go...
Simon Pegg responds with, his head came off.
You're not talking your way out of this one, Gary. Your mother's not dead. She's still alive.
And then they look down.
And then the body comes back to life.
And then what follows is one of my favorite, I think, action sequences in a movie. It's so fun where they fight 4 dudes
in a restroom.
One headless. No, he puts it back on.
No. I think they just like. Wait, does he?
Yeah, he puts it back on because he spins it back around.
I forgot
about that. And
then
he does that, and then he yells at him.
Right. He holds his hand out and just screeches. Yeah, I can admit that action sequence in particular is so fun because it's like, it's quote unquote realistic in the sense that it's clearly just a bunch of 40-year-old dudes fighting a bunch of teenagers.
A bunch of 40-year-old dudes who are definitely a little drunk.
Yes.
It's the action, all the action and like when they're fighting, everything they do is so in line with their characters and like who they represent. Where
Right.
like,
Yeah, I mean, Gary fights like a bad boy.
yeah, he fights like a bad boy. He's the king. Where Andy is the knight, and so he's very strong. He's usually using his body to like give
Right,
momentum
right.
because of how like kind of big he is.
More of a berserker kind of buff boy.
Kind of a brute.
Yeah,
Where
brute.
I forget his name. Not Martin Freeman.
Which one? Which one?
The fourth one.
The fourth one. Ah, yes. The World's End.
Not Steven.
Not Steven. Peter.
Peter. Yes, where he's kind of like he is kind of a wimp. He
Yeah,
just kind of hides.
So he
for all
like
of it.
crawls between legs and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I could see that. What about Steven? I forget how he fights.
He fights. He's kind of the most normal fighter out of all of them.
Doesn't he just like
he-
punch and kick?
He punches and kicks, and he usually is able to use stuff around him to
Right.
use as well. Same with Nick Frost. He uses stuff around him as well.
Right.
But he's kind of like the more brute. Steven's kind of he's able to like find stuff to use as weapons.
Right.
And then I think Martin Freeman. I don't know what he does. He doesn't do much.
I think
He gets beat up for
Right.
most of it.
Right. Doesn't he also try to evade but not very good?
Yeah, he usually tries to evade and not very well. He doesn't. He usually needs to get help.
Right. Fair enough. You just describing that makes me realize that action scene is really good, and the action scene later in a different pub where Nick Frost picks up bar stools and starts
Stools?
using them.
Yep.
Those are great scenes. They're so good. You
That whole
talking about them
sequence
like
of Gary King with the beard.
he's trying to finish it while they're fighting. It's like he can't seem to finish it. I think you just gushing about it makes me realize again. I think that Hot Fuzz is a better written movie. I think Shaun of the Dead has more going for it. But
I can totally agree that Hot Fuzz is better written. By the way, it is. I think a tighter script than The World's End.
But at the same time, I can't in good conscience say that The World's End is even remotely bad.
No,
I think
it's so good.
it's very good.
Even if people say like it's their least favorite of the trilogy, it's still such a good movie.
It's like saying it's legitimately the comparison of Return of the Jedi. It's like you got the first two movies that are like masterpieces of cinema.
Yeah.
And then the third one is just a very good movie.
It's really good.
It's like you compare it to some of the best comedy movies out there, and it's not going to look that good.
No.
You compare it to literally any other comedy movie, and it's going to look like a masterpiece.
Any like alien invasion movie as well, I'd argue.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I haven't seen the vast amount of alien invasion movies, but I know for a fact that one of my favorite things about The World's End is the end at The World's End when they get to the pub called The World's End.
Yes.
Which, okay, the way this movie ends is that the end of it is essentially they fight off against the aliens, they win, but then the alien blows up the world or blows up the town, and then it turns into a post-apocalypse.
It's basically they've controlled all the electricity for so long, and they launched like a giant EMP.
Yeah.
And that's why everything like stops working.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, and that's what they do. Now, before that happens, they get to the bar, The World's End, and they go underground, and it is revealed that this alien called the Network is controlling. By the way, before we get to that, one thing about that bathroom fight scene that I love the most is they go, I can't get any reception on my phone. Must be the network.
Must be the network.
Foreshadowing.
It was, in fact, the network.
It was, in fact, the network. So they meet the network, which is just a disembodied voice played by Bill Nye.
Yep.
Nighy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's
Nye.
Okay, so the British actor.
He shows
Bill
up in
Nye.
all of them.
Yeah, he does. He's one of the recurring ones as well as Martin Freeman. Not the Bill Nye the Science Guy, the British actor Bill Nye, the one who played Davy Jones.
Yes.
So the voice.
Might be Bill Nye. I don't know.
Anyways, he voices the network, and the network is just a disembodied vocal voice talking about how humans are imperfect and he's going to create a perfect society by replacing everybody with robots. And What results is an argument with a drunk Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, and
The guy who plays Steven.
Steven, yes. And they just yell at him going, "This is a stupid idea. Leave us alone. We don't want you here."
Yeah, essentially just being like, we're humans. We make mistakes because we're humans, and that's why we're awesome.
Yeah.
And we don't want your perfect robots. I think my favorite bit is when he's like, how many people have you had to replace? And they're like, well, we've had some trouble.
Yeah, no, so I love the fact that Nick Frost, like Andy, is so drunk out of his mind, but he then has this like moment of drunk clarity where he goes, "Man, hang on a second. If you want a perfect society, you have to replace some people. How many people in our town have you had to replace? That is irrelevant. Is it? Because you have to replace a few." And he's like, "There's been some problems. Who in here is human?" And
All of them. There's like 3.
There's 3 people who go, "Hey, we're actually human." They're these like 2 conspirators and then a crazy old guy.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the only 3 people in the entire town that this alien robot didn't replace. It's so funny.
It's so good.
And here's what I want to get at. This whole conversation with the network would have been so much better to me if it isn't legitimately the end to my first short film that I made. It's pretty close to a short film I directed 2 summers ago. If you've never seen it, don't go looking for it. But I legitimately wrote a short film with me and my good friend at the time, Tiago, being 2 characters who yell at the supreme being for teleporting us to alternate dimensions and then bringing us to heaven. And I yell at him for not including mustard on the sandwich he gives me. Because I thought that was really funny.
That's pretty funny.
Now, imagine you could see why I had flashbacks to that when watching The World's End, right?
Yeah, that's fit. No, I can see that.
That's exactly how I felt watching that scene. And I'm like, you know what? I can admit it. I think Eddie Wright did a better job at it. But it does kind of devolve.
Maybe.
He did a better job at it. It does still kind of devolve into just kind of a back and forth conversation.
It does, but I think the fact that it's an alien collective just arguing with 3 British dudes who are very wasted.
Yeah.
Is the funniest conclusion.
I think the best part
possibly been.
I think the best part of it is something that you said earlier, that in all of these alien invasion movies, the aliens have to be the ones to say that humans are imperfect and should be replaced by perfect creatures. And they have to go, or they're like, "You'll never change." And I like the fact that what Nick Frost and Simon Pegg essentially and Steven yell at this guy is, "We are imperfect for a reason and we love it. Shut up, go away.
Yep.
We want to stay this way." I think it's like, sure, the alien still points out that they're imperfect, but it's like they fight back so vehemently that I'm just going, Gary King is an awful person.
Oh, yeah.
He's toxic. He's horrible.
He's not a good guy.
He should grow up.
But he's better than these guys.
He's better than these guys. And if he was the one speaking to the aliens saying, we are not perfect and we all suck. And he even admits his whole catchphrase is there's only one Gary King. Mm-hmm. But when he's talking to this alien, he goes, "We're all awful people. There's more than one Gary King." And then goes, "I know what I said. I know exactly."
He's still the only one, though.
He's still the only one. And the alien's like, "Fine, you're all stubborn." And
I think one of my other favorite bits is how the network calls him Gary King of the humans.
Yeah, Gary King of the humans. Let me admit, I would, in a heartbeat, have Gary be the king of the humans if he was going to say that.
Not go well, but I would,
It would go well for that instance only.
That's true.
For that interaction only, sure.
It would only be good if we were attacked by aliens.
But at the same time, it's a very good contingency when we are attacked by aliens.
Yes.
Don't worry about it, ladies and gentlemen. One thing you don't need to worry about is aliens, but you will need to worry about the fact that we are going to go to break. Well, I suppose it's not really much of a worry. It happens on a radio show. So we are going to go to break now. And when we come back, we will talk about our 4th movie tonight. So stick around. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. And I am joined tonight by another human being.
Yes, I am a human being, as much as you're aware of.
Oh no.
I am Logan Booth. Hello.
Hello, Logan Booth. Welcome. Are you sitting in a booth?
No, I'm sitting in a studio.
Same different. No. I had to make that joke eventually at some
that's
point.
okay.
So, for the last movie that we're going to be talking about, after talking about the Cornetto trilogy,
Yes.
it could have made sense to talk about Edgar Wright's sitcom with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, Spaced. But that's a show, and I didn't have infinite time on my hands. And I've also already seen this movie before, so it made sense to watch it again, and we can talk about
It
it.
would have been pretty funny if we just talked about Paul, though. Not made by Edgar Wright, but it does star Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Yeah, I've heard. I don't
haven't
know.
seen it.
Well,
I
haven't seen it either. What I have seen is the movie we're going to be talking about next, and the last movie we're talking about tonight, which is Baby Driver from 2017, which is available to rent from places such as Amazon, YouTube, Fandango at Home, and Apple, and et cetera, YouTube. Basic plot summary of Baby Driver is we follow a driver, a getaway driver for a criminal named Baby, who doesn't like violence, but must endure it and is involved in multiple heists and wants to escape and meets a nice girl named Deborah who he wants to run away with.
Yes.
Yeah. This one, okay. So you've seen Baby Driver
I have
before.
seen it many a time.
Yes, I've seen it twice. I gotta admit, so here's where to start. We'll start with this. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Baby Driver at all, here's one thing you really need to know. Baby Driver kind of has a gimmick to it,
Yes.
more so than any of the three movies we've already talked about. They aren't exactly gimmicks, they're tropes.
Yes.
Baby Driver, I'd say, is more of a gimmick.
I would argue it's a gimmick, but it works for the movie
No, absolutely.
completely.
Yeah, that's the problem with gimmicks, is that sometimes they could be seen as a negative thing.
Sometimes a movie only has a gimmick, where I
Right.
think Baby Driver has a gimmick and also it's a good movie.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a good distinction. So the main gimmick of Baby Driver is Baby Driver himself, the driver named Baby. Baby, the character, listens to music on his iPod during the course of the movie. It is a lot of pre-established music, things like, you've got Queen music, you've got prog rock music, you've got a lot of different kinds of music.
Great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack. Now, that great soundtrack goes hand in hand with a lot of the editing and a lot of the actions and
the visuals.
a lot of the visuals. The movie is essentially synced up to its soundtrack,
Yes.
more so than any other movie you will probably watch.
Which he does tend to do in his previous movies.
Oh, yes.
The intro to Shaun of the Dead. For one, of course. I think it happens in Scott Pilgrim at some point. I can't pinpoint it. It definitely happens in The World's End,
Yeah.
but not to the extent of Baby Driver.
No, we're
This
talking...
baby can drive, and he loves music.
Oh, yes. And from the comparison of even the Cornetto trilogy, you kind of notice it even more. You still notice it. That's how much it goes with it, because we're talking like full-blown multiple cuts in a row are just synced up to the beat.
Pretty much everything, and at some points, even like footsteps are synced up to the music.
Right. And it's insane.
It's
levels.
insane. It's an amazing feat of directing.
It's honestly one thing I remember. What?
Sorry, directing and editing.
Oh, yes, 100%. One thing I was not surprised to read about is that this was a movie that Edgar Wright wanted to make for a long time.
Yes, before Space, I think.
Yeah, he'd had it in his mind since he was very young,
Yeah.
and had picked out all of the songs he was going to use and had the idea there for a very long time.
He used it for a music video and was worried that because the music video went viral, and he was worried that everyone was going to call him out on Baby Driver and be like, "You're just using your idea again," but no one noticed.
Right. I think the part of it, if I'm being honest, I don't think you could really call him out for it, because
It's his idea.
it's his idea. yes, but at the same time, watching the Cornetto trilogy back, I'm not surprised this was his idea.
Oh yeah, it's very much an Edgar Wright movie.
Yes, it's very much a him idea. If anything, I would have been surprised if he never had an idea like this at some point. And the fact that it was like one that existed for such a long time, I'm like, yeah, I could see this being the thing he sits on. He clearly incorporated elements of the idea into the Cornetto trilogy, again, syncing up the music to it. It kind of felt like the thing that he was waiting to make and waiting for somebody to give him the green light on.
Absolutely.
For a very long time. And it shows in a lot of aspects. It's so hard to narrow it down to just one.
It's his Baby Driver.
It's his baby. Yeah, it's called The Baby Driver, and it's his baby.
Driver.
Yeah.
They should have casted Adam Driver. That would have been funny.
Yes, they should have. I think he was probably busy doing Man Who Killed Don Quixote at this point. Anyway, here's one thing I will say. I like Baby Driver for the elements of editing and directing, and it has a great choice of music to use, and the syncing it up is a really good feat. And I think the core romance is there.
I think it's there.
But
I think it's solid. I think it's a little fast paced, but I think it works.
I think the crime drama elements of the movie aren't bad.
I like them. I think I really like Baby Driver, and it's one of my favorites. I do think there's an element of Edgar Wright I think is usually at his best when he has another co-writer.
Yeah, and when he's doing more of a comedy.
That as well.
I don't think Baby Driver has enough comedy, and I definitely think he needed a co-writer for this to really feel like more than... to feel like significantly more than its gimmick. It has more than its gimmick.
It absolutely does.
It has more than its gimmick, but things like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and World's End have their tropes and then are a lot more than those tropes.
Yeah.
Baby Driver is more than its gimmick, but it's not a lot more.
I would argue it does a lot more, enough. It does enough to
more
rise itself above the gimmick to.
Oh sure, no, I can agree.
Justify it for sure.
Sure, I don't think it's to the. I just would say it's not to the same level as Cornetto trilogy does with its trope.
I can definitely agree with that. Yeah,
and I think that I think part of the reason is just that he doesn't really know how to write a good. He didn't really know how to write a lot of interesting criminal characters.
That's fair.
They're kind of goofy caricatures, which I personally can like.
I would love a caricature, though. I think the character aspect is probably intentional. It also could not be, but I'm just gonna choose to believe that it is.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that there's someone like John Bernthal who could have been fun, but some of the stuff he says is a little generic.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a little cartoonish.
A little cartoonish
evilness in characters.
Yeah, a little cartoony to the point of it being generically like is this really what we're doing? Yeah. Could we do something else? I think the only character who really stands out to me is Bats, if I'm being honest.
Bats is good. I think who's the other guy? What's his name?
Buddy?
I think Buddy stands out. I think Buddy's a great and final villain of the film.
He works enough. I think
I just love that actor.
What?
I love the actor. He does.
Oh, you like John Hamm?
John Hamm, he's so good.
I can see that. He is pretty fun. I think honestly Jamie Foxx does a better job.
That's fair. I think Jamie Foxx, it felt like it was the most obvious final villain in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you're watching and you're like, oh, Buddy, he kind of defends Baby at times. They kind of bond over a little bit. But then I think when spoilers for Baby Driver, by the way, when Bats gets impaled,
pretty brutally by Baby
on the bar by Baby, I think that's such a good subversion of oh my god,
it is. It is a pretty good subversion.
And then especially after you find out when he goes to the diner. And the girl says, Dever says, your buddy's here, and it's Buddy sitting at the counter.
Yeah, for that.
And it's such a tense scene. It's very well done, the tension in that scene.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But I do think Bats is probably a more interesting character.
He would have
I
been,
would agree for sure.
He would have been a better final villain, and I think for that subversion, it was. I don't think they did the. He did. I don't think Edgar Wright did a full cost benefit analysis. I hate to talk like a business person, but I think he should have thought a little harder about killing off a character for the sake of the subversion. And
That's fair. I don't think it was necessarily for the sake of the subversion. I don't know if the movie was the same, like everything that happens. I think that John Hamm is probably the better antagonist for the sequence of events that follow in the movie. I think if Bats were the final villain, it would be an entirely different ending.
That's actually true. I think it could have ended a lot faster.
Yeah,
it probably would have ended a lot faster.
I don't think the scene in the diner would have been as tense with Bats.
No,
because he would have just started shooting people.
Yes,
and it wouldn't have been a whole like conversation and like tense conversation and moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he does fit for Baby's restraint.
Yes,
and he has some form of restraint to him. I think the more I think about it and more that you've talked about it, I think, how do I put it? I originally didn't like Buddy being the final villain, but now that you've framed it like that, I don't think Bats would have been the good pick anyways.
I'm out here changing minds. What can I say?
I mean, like, what not anything against her, but I don't think Darling would have been a villain at all.
No, I don't think so.
she liked Baby too much.
Yeah, I think yeah. I think that's fair.
She was definitely tough as a criminal, but
she didn't have much character to her. Which I think is kind of unfortunate. I think that unfortunate. There should have been more.
Yeah, I mean, her character was she dressed in attractive clothing. Yep. That was about it. With that being said, I feel like it's important to bring up the main female actresses in Baby Driver, since I've done it for the other ones, because Lily James as Deborah, honestly, they could have replaced Ansel Elgort. I don't think they should have replaced Lily James.
Yeah, I think they totally could replace Ansel Elgort, and that's my hot take.
Right.
There's a few actors they could probably replace.
Yeah. I mean, they could have replaced Kevin Spacey. They could have replaced Kevin Spacey. What else? So there's also Isa Gonzalez. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. She's the one who plays Darling, and I saw her last year in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, where she did a really good job as Marjorie Stewart, or Marjorie. I don't know. I don't remember her name in the movie, but I know that she was in a movie I saw last year that I really liked. Yeah. And she's a wonderful actress as Darling. She's got that tough girl attitude to her, and I think she deserves the praise for it.
I agree.
Anyways, I think, let me see here. Oh, yes. One thing I mentioned before we started the show today is one element of Baby Driver that I think should not go underappreciated. And that is the fact that a lot of the music, pretty much all of the music, is pre-established, well-known songs.
Yes.
That in main terms is called a needle drop, and that means that it is a pre-established song that is used in a movie. And they're all diegetic. Like we were talking earlier, that means that they are heard by the characters in the movie. And with Baby's case, he's listening to it through his earbuds. Nearly all of it, he is listening to it, and it is happening, synced up to the music. I remember talking to a friend of mine who is really big on film music and film composition, or film music composition. And he said to me that he doesn't like needle drops in movies.
Okay.
Because he thinks they're cheap and they should pay the composer to make more original music. When I asked him what an example of good needle drop usage was, he brought up Guardians of the Galaxy as his example, because the main character, played by Chris Pratt, had his mother had old songs on a VHS recorder, and now he listens to it to remember her. And I'm sitting there going, I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, but Baby Driver, I feel like, is a better example.
It probably is a better example. Guardians is obviously a great example because it is a
Sure.
great movie. It has a great soundtrack, great diegetic soundtrack.
Yeah.
I do think Baby Driver is probably a better example.
Yeah, because a lot of the action is so synced up in sync with it, and a lot of it is. Part of the reason that it's not surprising Edgar Wright had this idea is so many little moments from things like Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead or even World's End in certain instances, even though World's End is less diegetic.
Yeah.
I think there are so many moments that are lined up with what the music is singing out,
Yes.
very intentionally so, that with Baby Driver being so reliant on that, it evokes that emotion all the time. It's part of the structural DNA of the movie.
Absolutely.
If you took away the music from it and replaced it with like pre-composed stuff, it wouldn't work.
It needs to be needle drops for it to work.
Yes. And that's the thing. I feel like you could replace the stuff. I don't know. Could you replace the stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't think you could. I also don't think that movie would work without the needle drops.
Okay. So they're both decent examples in that regard.
They're very much necessary for those
Right. And
those movies.
That's why it's a good example, because it
Yeah.
needs to be necessary to it. But I think overall, with the way the editing works, again, haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy. With the way the editing works, you put any other song in those moments, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. I think my final statement on Baby Driver is I like the part in the warehouse where Tequila is playing.
That's
And
my favorite sequence of the movie, I think.
they have a gunfight, and my favorite part is when Darling and Buddy are shooting, and Buddy reloads Darling's gun for her.
So good.
It's like that's a power couple.
It's a power couple, and it's just a really interesting like choreography.
It's
really cool.
I wish more people did it. I wish more people did stuff like that. And I wish more people did stuff like this. Okay, let me ask you as an editor and as somebody who is also an editor, if you got a chance to edit a movie like Baby Driver, you would take it in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely.
I would
take it in
too.
a heartbeat.
I'd take it to
It'd
the
be
end of
so hard.
It'd be so hard.
But I would do it.
I've always wanted to edit a music video, and Baby Driver is just one really big music video.
I've done a few music videos for fun in high school.
Was it fun to make?
Yeah.
So
They were fun. We did stuff on our school news. We had some music videos.
Oh, that's
on our school
awesome.
news. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
yeah. Anyways, that's just a complete random tangent. But
Yeah.
yes, one of these days I would like to edit a Baby Driver like movie. Absolutely 110%. Yeah. So, with that being said, I do believe it is time to end the show.
Yeah, it's about that time, huh?
It's about that time. You say looking at your wrist with nothing on it.
Yeah, I left my watch at home.
Well, thank you. This is why I must say thank you for being on the show again
Of
tonight,
course.
Logan.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun as well. Thank you all again for listening in to What to Watch Weekends. I will be on next Wednesday for What to Watch Wednesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. I will also be back next Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. for the next episode of What to Watch Weekends. If you're interested in following along with What to Watch Wednesdays or What to Watch Weekends, follow the Instagram or YouTube at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. Again, I'll be back next Wednesday telling you all what to watch. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.